I-140 is the immigrant visa petition. It's the sort of middle of 3 stages of that perm labor certification process that I was talking about. So the fact that you have an I-140 approved may well mean that you can get a new H-1 even though you've potentially used up 6 years in the past. J-1 may well be available to you, but there are some caveats there. Now, so that you guys know, the J-1 is a sort of a visa that's used in a couple of different environments. It can be used, you'll meet a lot of people on Fulbrights. They are always on a J-1. And often they're subject to a 2-year foreign residence requirement. So if you ever look at a J-1, look very carefully and make absolutely sure that it does not carry with it the obligation to go home for 2 years before you can get any other kind of visa or a green card. But it's also used in the environment of training, and so quite commonly we will, yes, the J-1 can be an option. It can be challenging if you've already had OPT, because it's meant to be a training tool with the very clear ethos. The whole ethos of the J-1 is that you go home. So the J-1 category exists to bring people to the US and expose them to the US lifestyle and culture, and then critically that they go home and talk favorably about the US. That's the whole ethos of the J-1. So that ethos is destroyed if one has already made the decision to actually remain in the US, which is why the J-1 is not one of the visas like the H-1, the L-1, and the O-1 that is not subject to Section 214B requiring you to prove that you intend to return home. So the long and the short of it is you may be eligible for a J-1. I don't know if you're talking about training or being a visiting scholar. Be careful about the question of that non-immigrant intent, especially when an I-140 is approved for you, because if you're pursuing permanent residence, that disqualifies you right there from a J-1. And you don't ever want to be in the position where you can be accused of misrepresenting your intentions. So yes, one needs to be cautious there, but the J-1, I'm really glad you brought it up, because it's that really was an omission from what I was talking about before. Sometimes that will be a good option, and it's also one to be aware of. Key point is this: when you're on OPT, you are in F1 status. So even though you've got your OPT card, you remain an F1 student in F1 status. So really what this question goes to is, well, if you move from one status to another, can you then go back to the first status? And from the way it's phrased, it sounds like you actually got the H-1B. And if you did, and then you switched employers from employer A on the H-1B to employer B on the H-1B, the denial of that second H-1B doesn't cause you to revert to F1 status. It doesn't preclude the possibility, when I think about it, of applying to reinstate your F1 status, but that's what would be required. Again, that's something that you'd have to liaise with your DSO, because the school, as you guys have found out, they have to monitor that SEVIS system and update it all the time. And for you to be able to go back into lawful use of your STEM OPT card, you would have to have a valid current SEVIS entry. But I'm not saying no, but you need to be very clear on whether or not your H-1B was initially approved, or whether there was only one H-1B and it was simply pending and never approved. Well, in that case, you are in fact still in F1 status.